Thank you for being here this morning. I know there's so much going on right now, and including so much going on in the legislative session. And that's why we're here this morning. We're so grateful and appreciate our guests that we have here this morning. Lexi Cunningham, many of you know Lexi. She is fantastic. She is a former superintendent, and she, for the last several years, has been working with the JLC. And remember, the JLC is the organization that works with all of the superintendents in the state, the local school boards association, as well as our business administrators. And so she has the opportunity to work with all of them and is very connected with what's going on in the legislative session. I know many of you have questions. Several of you sent me questions, and I forward many of them on to her. And so she's going to just do her best to hit some of the highlights of the things that are going on in the legislative session that have to do with education. But then she also told me she just loves questions. So she will be ready for us to just ask questions and get some clarification and what does this mean for us and all those types of things. So with that, let's just review our protocol for our power hours. Again, if everyone could just make sure that your microphones are off. And then if you would like to ask a question, you can either do the little hand emoji that you can see at the bottom right there. And we've got Shane Jones, that's our president, and Todd Kornberg that's here, that's our state coordinator. And he's going to be participating throughout as well. And between all of us, we'll keep an eye on the chat to see if we see any questions. And then besides that, you can just enter questions in the chat. You can put your hand up. Most of our screens, we can't see everyone, so use that hand emoji rather than actually raising your hand, and we'll keep an eye on that. So did I cover everything, everyone? I know we're anxious to jump right in, and so Todd, do you want to start?
I do, because of time.
Todd's going to start. Todd, get yourself so that everyone can see you.
Okay.
You can see that Todd is, okay. Todd's the one you can see standing facing the key. Look, he's all dressed up for us today.
Oh yeah.
Todd, here we go. We're turning it over to Todd, then we'll turn it over to Lexi. Here we go.
Lexi, because of time, the bill that I'm most interested in, and I can't remember the number, but it has to do with school fees. Can you comment to that one real quick? Because for us, I think it's the #1 concern as far as legislation.
Okay.
Yes. Well, first of all, good morning, and thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to meet with you this morning. Greetings from the Utah School Superintendents Association and the Utah School Boards Association. And thank you for all that you do to support our teachers, our students, our families, and our communities. You are the backbones of our schools, and you are so appreciated, and I know you don't hear that often enough. But school fees, okay, that is Representative Strong. This has been a bill that we have been working with a variety of legislators on for a number of years. It's HB 415 and it's school fees amendments. We currently oppose this bill as a joint legislative committee because there is no funding tied to this bill. The current bill, in the way that it's written, would require a 5-year phase out, phase down, however you want to call it, of general and curricular fees. We have estimated before the session even started that could cost districts collectively across the state, that could cost us anywhere from $30 to $50 million. In working with Representative Strong, he says that this is going to be covered in a WPU increase, but we do not have evidence of that right now. What we are seeing for the WPU increase is the 3.8 for inflation, and that's required by law that we get inflation, and possibly an additional 1.2. There's still a lot of moving parts to the session. That 1.2 could go up, but even if it were to go up, to cover the cost of school fees would be a 1% increase to the WPU. So we continue to work with Representative Strong, we continue to work with all of our legislators, but a 5-year phase out with no funding could be detrimental to our schools, and it could result in the loss of programming opportunities for our students across the state.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm also interested in Senate Bill 104, and it has to do with the pornography, sexual exploitation, support of it. Are you seeing movement on that? And I guess the thing I'm worried about from my perspective is policing something like that.
Yes. The bills that we're looking at, that deal with sensitive materials and pornography, we have, again, we are a no on, or opposed to Senator Ivory's HB 29. That is an update or an amendment to the sensitive materials that was passed last year, so we're still opposed to that. We also are opposed to his HB 417, which is a school materials bill. That has been amended, so right now we would only allow a parent or a board member in an open meeting if they wanted to use their time in addressing the board to read porn, I guess, and there's no better way to say that, in an open meeting. So we have not yet taken a position on 104. We are watching that. It could begin to move more quickly at the end of the session, but we are just watching it and seeing where it goes. Right now, as a body, we are tracking over 100. This morning it was 103 bills that relate specifically to K-12 education. We don't track any charter bills. We're not tracking anything that is higher ed. And we've taken positions on over 50 plus bills. We think that we will be well over 80 bills taking positions on by the end of the session. But right now, Todd, the one that you mentioned is not one that we have taken a position on.
Thank you. Well, just one more, if I may.
No, of course.
I see Harold Robinson on screen, and actually, he and I have talked maybe 3 years. He's from Millard County.
Mm-hmm.
House Bill 71, and it has to do with social workers and funding. We know that that's been a renewed grant every year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited by the possibilities of this, especially for rural Utah. What do you know about that bill, and where is it? And it's won by Senator Thatcher.
Thatcher, okay. Well, I think that it's important to know that this is a really difficult budget year. I mean, we're not back in the days of 2008, 2009 when things were really difficult, but it is a difficult budget year. And so bills that will require funding, we're not sure how they're going to go. So that bill looks like it has a $13 million price tag on it. The bill itself is moving. It has passed the House and it's now in the Senate, and it looks like it's moving, and it passed the House unanimously, and so it might be moving that way to the Senate. We just won't know until the last week of the session what is going to be funded and what isn't going to be funded. In all of the committees, the committee chairs for all the appropriations had to submit their budgets to executive appropes, and what we're hearing from executive appropes is things are going to be really tight this year. So I think that's a great bill, and it could do a lot of things, but with a 5.4 million request ongoing and an 8.2 in one-time funding, I'm not sure where that will be in the final bill of bills at the end of the session.
If there was ever a time for rural Utah to speak up, if you're on, it's now on that bill. That's gonna be important for all of you. In suburban areas, like I have one full at my school, and I know in rural Utah, you're sharing between multiple, and
Right.
it just, I'd like to see it addressed. But really, rural Utah, if you're online, that one needs to be taken a look at.
And I think that what's important with that is there's a lot of talk, especially in the House, on safety, but we're talking about, and I can give you some more information on Representative Wilcox's bill. The safety bills that we're seeing that are dealing with schools, it's about the hardening of the schools. And we want to still have the conversations. Yes, we definitely think we need to do some things that could make our schools, you know, more difficult to get into for a perpetrator and things like that. But we also know, in looking at the tragedies across the country, that mental health is still so important. So I think that it is critical to, you know, safety and mental health go hand in hand. And so I think any help that you can do, you know, promoting that would be helpful.
Okay, does somebody wanna jump in? We had a question about just, which bill was that social worker bill? I think it's 71.
Yes.
It's HB 71, correct.
71,
It's
okay.
Elison is the House sponsor and Thatcher is
Harold has it.
the Senate sponsor. Again, great bill, moving through both houses. It's just gonna, it will come down to funding.
Okay, Harold, Robinson has a question.
Oh, okay, thank you. Harold?
Yeah, Todd, thanks for bringing that up. And I'm glad to see that there is dialogue. We're underrepresented for mental health practitioners in rural Utah. We do have such a great need. Would we contact our legislators, or who do we visit with to get that going?
I think at this point, what you would do, I mean, legislators are seeing that's a great bill. I think that your best bet right now would be members of executive approach and letting them know, hey, we support this bill. It's got support in the House. I think it's gonna get support in the Senate. It passed out of their committee unanimously. And so I would just say, you know, any funding that can be provided to this, it's gonna help our students, because, you know, in Miller County, we only have one social worker for how many of our students, and give some data that way. Because right now, things that deal with finance, it's all coming down to executive approach.
Thanks, Lexi.
You're welcome.
Is it okay if I keep going? I don't
Yeah.
wanna pop in anybody if you have a question. And I can't find the bill right now, where, it's kind of a voucher, another voucher bill that's coming through. Let me look at it real quick.
Okay, well, I can talk a little bit about, Utah Fits All was passed last year, $42 million price tag. The state has hired the program manager to run the Utah Fits All Scholarship Program, AKA the voucher program. They will open the application window for that on February 28th. And so the company that is running the program will open that application program. There is I don't know if they're a formal PAC or a PIC, but they have been doing some pre-registration, and I'm not really sure how accurate that is. And they're telling the legislators, oh my goodness, you know, we need more money in Utah Fits All. We're not gonna be able to serve all of our students. So earlier in the session, Senator Collmore and Representative Perucci went to Public Ed Appropriations and asked for $150 million more for Utah Fits All. So that would be on top of the 42. So it would take that price tag to about $200 million. Education Appropriations has made a recommendation to Executive Approach for $50 million in additional money. And so that would be money that could be used to expand the program next year. So we're definitely opposed to that. We have not even seen the program run through a whole year. We haven't even seen one application into the program because it hasn't started. So we definitely are opposed to that. And then recently, Representative Perucci, Representative Perucci has a bill that would, make some technical changes to the Utah Fits All Scholarship Program. And so we are going to examine that bill at our meeting this Friday. And so vouchers it is still a hot topic. They are definitely looking to expand. And what is troublesome with that, we have multiple things are. We haven't even started the program, but as they're trying to add millions and millions of dollars into the voucher program, Utah Fits All, there is also $160 million tax cut that is on the table. And so this will be the third or fourth tax cut. We've already cut taxes well over $1 billion, and this would be another $160 million tax cut. So that is something that we watch on a regular basis. We are very nervous about this feeling from the legislature that they need to expand this voucher program, and we are just opposed to that, especially with the current state where there's very little to no accountability, either financially or academically, and we are really afraid about what it's going to mean for our schools too. Kids could be moving in and out, they could show up after being homeschooled for a couple of years, they could be behind. It just is very troubling.
So for those of you who are online, it is the Cullimore bill that I'm referring to, and people need to really look at that bill closely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would think we are watching the voucher program, we are watching what's going on in other states. And when legislators begin to add more money and just open things up, if you look to see what's happening in Florida, in Arizona, they're opening up the voucher program, millions and millions and millions of dollars. They keep lowering taxes, and they're putting their states into a really difficult situation. For us, we've even had our governor make a statement about how we'd like to eliminate the income tax. And so this whole tax question and what they're spending on vouchers is troubling.
Thank you. You know, I'm also interested in the standardization of a school schedule that's just popped up recently, but
Yes.
and then really if there's any more questions, I'd like to know how we are going to, what are the ramifications of the law that's already passed about transgender restrooms and so forth, because I think a lot of us are unsure of how that's going to affect us. So those two things would be helpful.
Absolutely. Senator McKay has this bill that basically says that he wants all districts to have schedules that are run on either semesters or quarters. We're going to be opposed to that because that is a local control issue. Local districts, local schools should be making those decisions. There are great reasons to be on a semester and quarter system. There are also great reasons to be on a trimester, and we just feel that some of this minute micromanaging, it has got to stop, because it is standardizing things like that across the state will cause more harm for students than it will good, and it could eliminate some opportunities for students depending on where they live in their schedule. So we will be opposed to that. I need to tell you, like, we are really looking at unfunded mandates. Like, we just feel we can't support those. We are looking at things that take away or diminish local control by our local leaders. It is difficult for us to support things like that. Bills that are putting more demands on the plates of principals and teachers, we're really taking a hard look at those too, because those sort of things have to stop. You know, we talk about all the time, we need to take things off people's plates, or we need to take out things off people's plates, and we try to do that during the interim, but then the session starts, and for every one thing we try to take off your plates, legislators are putting 2 or 3 things more on your plates, and that just has to stop. Okay, so I editorialized there for a little bit, I'm sorry. So the bill that you
We
were
love
talking
it.
about-
Yeah, I feel like we all should have done it there, so thank you.
Okay, so in Berkland's HB 257, sex-based designations for privacy, anti-bullying, and women's opportunities. This, all of the kind of the culture bills, we also have the equal opportunity initiatives. We really felt like all of those culture bills, legislators tried to deal with the first couple of weeks of session. And we've tried to have conversations with Representative Berkland, and she did come to a JLC meeting. We tried to ask some questions. We did not get clear answers. And so what we are doing is, for that one, leaning heavily on USBE. We're asking for, we're gonna need checklists. We're going to need, you know, step by step, here's what needs to be done, because there's so much in that bill. We are concerned as an organization for our district. We don't want anybody to miss a step or what they need to do. And so USBE is working on that, as they're working on their rule and how they will translate that bill into a rule, so that we can then translate the rule into policy. So both for that one, and then HB 61 is Representative Hall's Equal Opportunity Initiative. We want to see some concrete things coming from USBE so that we can move forward on that. I know that's not a great answer, but everybody is really nervous about a couple of those bills, and we don't want to mess it up. And so we're trying to work with USBE to get some concrete things before we move forward with policy changes and possibly do it wrong.
Lexi, is there any funding in any of those bills?
Okay, there is. I do not have anything on my tracking sheet. I don't think there would be that much, even if there was. Again, and even if there was a funding request, it doesn't mean we would get it, just because there is so little funding right now in the state.
Okay.
But I'm hoping. So.
Anyone else? Lexi, let's talk, if there's a bill that you think we need to be looking at, please go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. There's a couple bills that I really think that, Wilcox has a school safety bill. It's HB 84. This is the bill that would require, schools, high school, middle school, and elementary schools over 100 students to either have an SRO, a hired security person, or a guardian. So that's part of the bill, but then it also makes a lot of safety requirements on schools. Like, teachers have to have panic buttons. There need to be certain type of like antennas, so that police radios can talk to each other. They're talking about how to harden the schools a little bit. We are trying to work with Representative Wilcox and see if there's some more funding to do some of the hardening of the schools, because in some of our large districts, a panic button in every classroom, that could be $1 million+. And for some of our smaller schools, it could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is monumental. And so I think that's a bill that we are watching. And we've also tried to work with the sponsor, like, okay, we get SROs, you know, we've got, most of our high schools have that, hired security, okay, you know, we know what we get when we do that. But this guardian program, where districts are gonna be required to have a guardian who is an employee in the school, go through specialized training, have their weapon and then be maybe the first line of defense. We're a little concerned about that. We think it all sounds good in, when you're describing it, but if a custodian or a cafeteria worker or an aide has to actually pull their weapon, what is that really gonna look like? And so that is, school safety is important to everybody, but we think we have a bill here that without more funding and without more direction, it is gonna be very, very difficult to implement. And I think that some of our rural schools are really going to be in a really difficult place because at least along the Wasatch Front, there might be companies where you could hire security, but in some of our small rural areas, they're tapped out on the number of police they have. There just are not anymore. And so now they're looking at, guardians, and we've had some superintendents begin to have conversations with staff. Is anyone interested in doing this? And they're getting no. The answer is no. So that's a bill that we're looking at.
What's interesting about that one is a year ago, we were talking to legislators and they were talking about we didn't need them because of the message it would send to our communities that they're unsafe. So that's,
Right.
That's shocking.
Yeah, it is. And so we keep working on that one. There are a couple bills. Representative Shipp has a bill, HB 161, and Representative Pritchett has a bill, HB 173. Both are referendum bills. Shipp's bill would allow a community to referendum a social issue that a school has voted on. So maybe it's a mascot issue, maybe it's a dress code issue, something like that. There would be a referendum process that could be put in place. Now, he did add that if it was local board, if there was a 2/3 majority, it would be non-referendumable. Representative Perucci's is about raising taxes. Like, so if a board goes through truth and taxation, they decide to raise taxes to give teachers raises or, buy textbooks or a social studies classroom. This bill, HB 173, would allow the local community to start a referendum against that tax increase. We just feel that this could be detrimental to some of our districts without a supermajority vote. With the help maybe of the Taxpayers Association, we really feel in some of our communities, parents and community members could get enough signatures to really do that. And so when you think about boards raising taxes, it typically is about paying people. And if a referendum is started, then there would be no increase until the referendum stops. So I think the unintended consequences of HB 173, besides just pitting the legislature against local districts, I mean, we could lose teachers over this, class size could increase, we could continue to have outdated materials in some of our classrooms. So we just don't think that a referendum is the way to go with that. But both of those bills have passed out of committee. I don't think they both will pass. My guess that Perucci's could pass, but we are definitely watching that.
Lexi, how are we what part of that bill is recognizing outstanding teachers for a salary bump? How are we going to recognize which teachers would get that? That's confusing to me and scary.
Yes, that is Senator Fillmore. That is that's SB 173.
Okay. Yes.
And that's market informed compensation. So what that bill, that bill is partnering with the School of the Future at Utah State University. And so Senator Fillmore has chosen USU as the partnering high school of higher ed. So what would happen if this bill passes is there would, through the School of the Future, they would have to create, not a program, but a process that schools would apply to measure teacher growth. So it could be student performance, Part of it could be based on parent surveying. Part of it could be on a peer review of a teacher. And so districts, if they chose to participate in the program, would have to share, here's our scale on how we're going to measure our teachers that are excelling, and the School of the Future would approve those rubrics, and then the bill, it's a pilot, so it would go into effect for 3 years, and there's different compensation levels for teachers. Right now, we are opposed to that bill. We just feel that districts and teachers should be more involved in that process. Like, if this is going to affect them and possibly impact compensation, we need to be involved. We also are really leery because we have seen pay-for-performance bills across the country that have been implemented and they've not been successful in really increasing student achievement. If we're just talking about paying teachers more, that's a whole different conversation, but they are trying to tie this to achievement. We've not seen that it has been implemented well across the country. Lots of questions. The other thing that we're really concerned about is in a year where we're hearing that it's a down budget year, they are setting aside $200 million for a 3-year pilot program. And you all know, if you have a pilot program and your teachers are getting up to $10,000 more and that pilot program goes away, who are they gonna blame for that? They're not gonna blame the legislature. They're gonna say, well, principals, what did you do? Districts, what did you do? And we just feel a pilot program for 3 years on $200 million is a risky investment. And we've seen nothing that, shows that this is going to have a positive effect. So we're as concerned about that as you are and we are right now, and oppose. If they wanna do a study, let's bring that dollar amount down, pick a couple of districts, let's test it out, let's see if it will work. But a statewide $200 million pilot program, that's a little risky, we think.
Yeah, we want that put in the general education fund. A pilot,
Agreed.
yeah, a pilot is a problem for us as well.
Agreed.
Lexi, I lost track of one bill, and I'm unsure where it is right now, but it's a bill that changes the appeal process for Utah High School Activities Association.
265.
Yeah, that is Hawkins, I believe. Yes. We are keeping in touch with UHSAA on that one. We've not taken a position on that yet. Let me just see. I'm just checking to see where that bill is right now. So.
Lexi, while you're looking that up, do you know, is the flavor behind that more that you have some legislators trying to make it easier to move student athletes around and do those kind of things, or do you think it's more trying to crack down on some of the current culture of our high schools where there's a lot of recruiting and movement? Do you have a flavor for that at all?
I don't really have a good feel on that. When I talked to Dave Spadafor, who is the lobbyist for UHSAA, he made it sound like it had something to do with some football games in the fall, but I'm not 100% on that. That bill has not moved out of rules, so it has not had a committee hearing. It's numbered, but it's not moved, and it's still sitting in rules. So hopefully UHSAA is working on that, and we can have them take care of that so it doesn't become a rule.
So I talked to Spadafor as well, and it is a reaction to a state game with Pleasant Grove, and it's a knee-jerk reaction down there. And I think our concern is there's not in the bill, it kind of cuts active administrators from sitting on that appeals committee. That's highly concerning to us.
Yeah. Hopefully it will just stay in rules. It hasn't gotten a hearing, it's just sitting there, and so we're now in the middle of week 5 and it hasn't moved. So my hope is that Dave and that Robin's team at UHSAA are working on that and figuring out a way, or they've talked to the sponsor and just say, let's just let this go right now. It's not, if it doesn't impact everyone and it only really is a knee-jerk reaction to a couple of schools at an event, let's just slow it down, so it's not moving.
You know, everybody online, please know that, you know, Utah High School Activity Association, there are some things that need to be adjusted. We all talk about it, but this bill, I hope it just sits there, this bill, I promise you, would make it worse. There would be no school say, no input, and the majority of it would be put in the hands of legislators, in truth.
Mm-hmm.
So
we'll keep watching it. Like you, we have representation on that board, and so we will continue to watch it. It would expand the role of the legislature on the appeals panel. So your voice would lessen, their voice would be louder.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. Any other bills, Lexi, or?
So I'm going through, I think, one thing that we think is a good bill and we're excited, I mean, there have not been a lot of good bills this year. And so one thing that we are excited about is Karen Peterson, Representative Peterson has a bill, there's an $8 million price tag on it, and it would be a stipend for student teachers. They would get a $6,000 stipend to student teach. We just think this has some possibilities. We've heard from some of our student teachers, it's difficult. Sometimes they have to quit their job to student teach. So we think this one could elevate the teaching profession and just say, you know, we value our student teachers, we want you to have a good experience. So we're excited. That's a bill that we are excited about, and we're trying to champion. Another bill that we are trying to champion, and it's been one of our priorities, is Representative Gwen's 251. It's a post-retirement reemployment restrictions amendment. It would just change the option that our retired employees would have if they chose to come back and work after retirement. You know, there are pros and cons to that, but we've been trying to see if there's just another way that we could re-engage with retirees, not just in education, but this would be state employees, this would be fire, this would be police. And so we are excited about his bill. That's one of our priorities, so we are really trying to support that. One bill that we are very concerned about, and it's because you're gonna have a lot of questions on it, and your teachers are gonna have a lot of questions on it, and we don't know how to answer those questions, is HB 303. It's Stenquist school curriculum requirements. It's his neutrality bill. It's where teachers have to be neutral in the classroom. They can't have any controversial conversations with students. And it's troubling to us because we know that people are gonna have questions and we don't know how to answer those questions. And so one of the things that I talked to him about was, you know, in a high school classroom, it's not uncommon for a high school teacher to have posters or pennants of colleges just to try to promote that college going culture with kids. And I said, is that allowable? And he says, well, as long as they're not religious schools. And I thought, okay, well, that's gonna be a problem. And so then I said, well, what about if a teacher went to a religious school and they have their diploma on the wall? I mean, that's positive. That's promoting. And he didn't really know how to answer that. And so we're just, it passed through the House. It's gonna get a hearing on the floor, and we're just really concerned that it takes away, in your classrooms, it just says it's okay to display the flag of the United States, the state flag, or the flag of another nation or state if it relates to so that's good. But then we don't know, like, what about teachers' workspace? Could they have a different type of flag or something there? And so we're just really concerned about that.
You know, Lexi, back to that retirement bill, just kind of information for you. Currently, I'm losing teachers who are quality veteran teachers that would stay. Like my athletic director right now is moving to Idaho, and he does have family up there, but he would stay if he could retire and get rehired here. Another teacher is moving to Providence Hall, which apparently isn't in the Utah system.
Not state retirement.
And so I'm losing my best teachers to some of these other schools, other opportunities, and it's killing me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is just a different option to hire people back, but so there would still be the option that you sit out a year and then you can come back. We currently have that. But what this bill does is it takes away that dollar amount that you can only earn up to like $19,000 plus. So it takes that away, but it does, if a person would be rehired, while they come back and they're rehired, their pension would be reduced to 80% only while they're back working in retirement. You guys, if you hired them back, could pay them whatever you wanted to. That doesn't matter. They would lose the COLA while they were retired while they were working. But once they stopped working again, they'd go back to getting the COLA and they'd go back to their full pension. So it is a different option. I think that retirees are gonna have to study both options to see what will work for them. But this has been something that we've been working on for a number of years, just to provide realistic options for state employees, for educators, for police and fire. So let's see. Representative Lisenby has done some juvenile justice revisions. During COVID, I'm sure you all knew we couldn't refer anybody for truancy. We thought we had that fixed, but there was a disconnect in the bill that in this last year, districts were trying to refer students after they've done all the interventions for habitual truancy to the courts. The courts weren't accepting those cases. We've been working throughout the session to get that fixed, so that next year I think that we'll be back in place where you still have to do your interventions with habitually truant students, but if after multiple interventions, and I think it's 1 or 2 habitual truancies, you will be able to refer to the court system. Now, I mean, I have to tell you, the interventions that schools have been doing, back in 2016, we were referring, I think we referred over 1,200 students for habitual truancy. This last year, it was under 25. Of those under 25, I think only 3 or 4 actually saw a judge and were adjudicated. So we're doing great work there, and we just really feel that if our principals and our schools have that backstop of being able to refer to court, that could help in some way. So we're pleased that Representative Lisenby is willing to work with us on that. Senator Fillmore, he does have a lot of bills this year. So he has a bill, okay, it's SB 137. It's the teacher empowerment bill. We started out opposing this bill, but we now are supporting it. So this was a bill that originally would give teachers, would allow teachers to have students removed from their classroom for discipline issues. They'd be given the same authority that principals have in removing students and disciplining students. We just felt that could be troublesome. Removing a student from a class is a big deal. We just felt that that could just lead to litigation across the board. So that part was taken out. So now what this bill does, the teacher empowerment bill, it does clarify a little bit on how teachers can use the hours that they get paid for, those 64 hours, 32 for each year. So it clarifies how they can use that money and what they can do, obviously working with you. But it does update and refine and hopefully make better the whole teacher evaluation process. It really, the bad part of the bill would have schools, districts create an evaluation cycle. That's a 4 or 5 year cycle. It would, if you choose as a district, you would not have to, with your veteran teachers, to do summative evaluations every year. You could do that every other year, every 3 years, and it just adds clarity to the evaluation process. So we feel that that could be helpful for a lot of our districts. Some of you are already doing some really great work with teacher evaluation, and we just feel that this will give every district that opportunity to create a cycle, add some more flexibility in how you're working with teachers. So hopefully that will end up being a good thing for districts and for teachers. So that is something that we are in support of. There have been a lot of election bills this year. We're kind of watching those, but only as they relate to school boards. Representative Acton does have a bill, like I don't have the number written down on that one, but it would allow candidates in nonpartisan elections to post their political party next to their name. We're concerned about that for school board members. Local school board races right now, they're nonpartisan. We really feel that that is helping us get some better candidates, and we don't want to lose that in our local elections. So we are watching that bill. We just don't think, we've seen what partisan elections have done, and we just don't think that'll be a good thing for districts across the state. So that is something that we are watching. So the other thing that I'm sure we are still, as an organization, in a conditional support for SJR 10 from last session. That is going to go to the voters this November. That would change the Constitution and lift the restrictions off of how the income tax is spent. We have that as a standing agenda item. We talk about that at every meeting. We have told all of our legislators that we will make a decision at the end of the session if we stay with our conditional support or if we move off of that conditional support. We've tried to communicate with all of our education partners. You know, we're making a decision possibly the 23rd of February or the 4th of March, and we'll decide which way we're going to go. But that is still a topic that is on the minds of board members and superintendents and BAs, and we continue to talk about that. So not sure the direction that our body will go, but they will have a decision on what they want to do at the end of the session. So that is something that we are advocating for. And then always we are advocating for students, that our students have the best opportunities. There have been several statements that boards have taken over the last week to support students, protect students. Our body took we have a resolution that we stand in support with the resolution that the Granite School District did, but I know many of your districts are also doing resolutions. We just want people to know that public schools are open to everyone and that we welcome everyone with open arms, and we will do our best to educate every student regardless. And that's kind of been a mantra that we've really been trying to focus on this year, that, you know, we'll take any kid, just, you know, bring them to us and we'll educate them, we'll love them, we'll take care of them, and we'll do our very best. So those are the things that we've been talking about. So are there any other questions?
Yeah, Lexi, I had a question that came from a teacher yesterday, and to be honest with you, to me it sounded absurd enough that I wasn't 100% sure, but talking with Todd, he heard the same thing as well. But I had a teacher ask me, is there a bill out there right now that says teacher could actually be either arrested or prosecuted for having inappropriate materials in the classroom, or books that are not approved, things like that?
Yes, that is, HB 417, that is Ivory's bill, that bill has been amended. And so what it says, it did say that yes, that could happen if if a book was found to be inappropriate or, met the sensitive materials, but that bill has been amended. I am not sure it's gonna go anywhere, it's still in rules, but it has been amended and it's taken out all of that language that would have charged teachers. And the only language that is left in the bill is it would not allow a local, governing board to prohibit the public display or, recitation of materials in a meeting. So everything out about finding materials in teachers' classrooms, you know, arresting teachers and all of that, that has all been removed. But that bill is going nowhere, and I've heard from the Senate it will not go anywhere. So
Lex, is that the sensitive material bill? Is that the same one as the sensitive?
no, sensitive material is called sensitive material. This one that I just talked about is school materials amendments. But both by Ivory, but Ivory's sensitive material bill is sensitive material review amendments.
You know, just going back to the partisan, I'm gonna call her out. The reason Natalie Klein got in is because she stated she was Republican and got her friends and so forth to go in. There was another guy that was appointed, and it feels like Natalie Klein, because she was saying Republican, got 300 of her best friends and went in and got the position. I think we need to start looking and supporting some of these state school board members and really understand what the outcome is. Even 4 weeks ago, she put out a comment about my school, Harriman High, that she couldn't believe, shame on Harriman High for taking illegals into their school. And then, of course, that transgender bill is mind-blowing. So I think we all need to get more involved in the state school board elections.
Well, and I think that you have an opportunity that as principals, you can share factual information about this is when caucus meetings are. Everybody's you can go to caucus meetings. You can share factual information. There's been some districts around the state that have been doing that with their leaders. And I think that is really empowering. You're sharing facts. You're not telling people they have to vote. You're not telling them which way they should vote. But here's factual information. Oh, you don't understand how a caucus system works? Well, let me explain it to you. You can definitely do all of that with your PTAs, with your SCCs. Those are great conversations to have with those groups to help them understand the process. And then also just say the best thing about public schools is we take everyone, and that everyone coming to our schools creates this amazing experience for students because they're not the same, they're different, and they get an opportunity to interact and try different things. I mean, high school is the time when you can take a CTE class and you can take an art class and you can try all kinds of different things that you may not be able to get to do in your life, and you get to interact with so many great people. So, but I think paying attention and being informed and sharing facts is always important.
You know, Lexi, our time is short. I just want to give one more, just so you can maybe look at it. This board knows I have a strong opinion about refugees, asylum seekers that are coming in. Lexi, I cannot service, with the funding I have now, I cannot service what I've got. So when I got to Harriman 5 years ago, we were at a 4% minority, and right now I'm at a 35% minority. There's no money in the general fund to help here. Therefore, I'm gonna say I'm sinking, and it really does feel that way. So more money in the general fund would be awesome to help with some of this.
Agree. I don't disagree with that. And I think that that is also what we battle every year. Like our legislators feel, you know, we gave you 6% last year. We gave you this, we gave you that. Well, they don't know how much of that has to go for, like, those of you in districts that have had over the past couple of years double-digit insurance increases. You've had to find money to pay classified employees and give administrators raises because they weren't included in that. And then we've had all of these unfunded mandates. And so, you know, when I hear legislators say, well, we gave you 6%, what'd you do with all that money? And I'm like, well, we're running schools with it and we're doing a good job. And so I think it's just this constant education, you know, educating our legislators that we're grateful for what you've given us, but we're asking for more because we can't meet the needs of our refugee students. Our ELL students don't have the needs, you know, things that they need, our at-risk kids, our special ed kids, our teachers. And so I just think it's just continuing to tell the story that while we're grateful for what we have, it's not enough, and give specific examples.
You know, I'm grateful for the salary increases, but you're right, it feels like that was okay, shut up now. But yeah, that's why I say, you know, the state, our administrators need to look, because just because we got salaries, that didn't fix the problems. We're desperate for general education funding so that we can distribute it. In fact, there's a lot of my teachers say, look, I'm okay salary-wise, but if I have to take 12 non-English speakers in my classroom, I can't do that, it's not worth it. So, and that's just one example. So, increase in general ed funding is a big deal, certainly to me.
Agreed, I agree.
Hey, Lexi, on a kind of a little different vein, have you heard of any bills being drafted or coming through based on a couple of the governor's initiatives, like the cell phone initiative or the service hours for graduation initiatives? Is there any verbiage along those that have actually gotten into bill at this point? Or is it just kind of, he's just still talking through those?
We have a pilot. We've got 4 districts that are gonna pilot the service. So that would be Granite, Nebo, Sevier, and Garfield. They're gonna do a 3-year pilot on student service as a potential graduation requirement. There's been some money that the lieutenant governor has requested for that. So they're gonna pilot that to see if it works. So yes, we've had that conversation. I have not seen, I know he sent all principals a letter about cell phones. I have not seen anything this session that is cell phone related about banning cell phones. But again, we still have 2 weeks to go, and the last week is so crazy, and they do suspend the rules in both the House and the Senate. So if somebody wanted to do something, it would be that last week. And I have been told by the governor's office, if there is a bill that bans cell phones, he will sign it.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you
He
know where
will
we
sign
get,
it.
do you know where we get copies of the 10 Commandments now, so we can post them?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And the
Yeah.
No.
Magical.
I would kind of wait on that because that might conflict with the neutrality in the classroom bill. So I'm not sure how that's gonna all play out. It might play out in court, I don't know.
It passed out of committee last night, just for those that don't know, it did pass
It
out
did.
of committee.
It did.
Okay, well, we are out of time. I feel like we could go on and on for a couple of more hours, but this has been so beneficial. I know a lot of people have been writing notes, and lots of questions probably still. If you still have questions, feel free to shoot them to me. Lexi's always so good to respond, and I reach out to her often about things. So if we still need some clarification, or if you hear anything, shoot me an email and I will ask her if there's not other ways, or if I don't already know the answer, so that we can keep discussing some of the things going on. Like I said at the beginning, certainly a lot of things happening that affect us, and
Yes.
Lexi, just thank you so much for your willingness to
advocate and to communicate and to support all of us and all the educators in Utah. You're so fantastic. So with that, we'll give you an air round of applause. Just
Oh,
appreciate
thank you.
all that you do. And just thank you, everyone, and good
Thank
luck
you.
for the rest of the day. And everybody have a happy Valentine's Day.
All right,
Thank you.
bye all.
See ya.
Take care.